China's tech giants have been pushing to develop their own semiconductors or chips, a move seen as progress on China's goal of being self-reliant on key technologies. In fact, even if China is one step closer to self-sufficiency, it still has a long way to go, says one expert. He added that China still relies heavily on foreign technology and is partially lagging behind in the frontier of the so-called chip market. Semiconductors are the key components of everything from smartphones to modern refrigerators to cars. They have also become a key focus of the broader technological struggle between China and the United States. The world's second-largest economy has been investing heavily in boosting its domestic chip industry for years, but it has struggled to catch up with rivals in the United States and other parts of Asia. For many countries, semiconductors are increasingly regarded as the key to national security and a symbol of technological strength. This year, major Chinese technology companies issued a series of announcements about chips made in China. In August, Baidu launched its second-generation artificial intelligence chip Kunlun 2. This week, Alibaba released a chip designed for servers and cloud computing. Smartphone maker Oppo is also developing its own high-end processor for its phones, the Nikkei News reported Wednesday. While the companies are designing their own chips, they may still have to rely on foreign tools to do so. But Chinese internet giants remain heavily dependent on foreign companies in manufacturing and wider supply chains. Bain partner Peter Hanbury told CNBC in an email, "This is a step to become more self-sufficient in the semiconductor field, but on a small scale. Specifically, these are examples of locally designed chips, but a lot of intellectual property, manufacturing, equipment and materials still come from internationally. The reason why these companies design their own chips is that they can create semiconductors for specific applications, thus distinguishing them from their competitors." A closer look at the details of the silicon being designed shows China's dependence on foreign companies. Take Alibaba's new Yishan 710 chip as an example. This is based on the architecture of ARM, a British semiconductor company. It will also be built on the so-called 5 nanometers process, which is the most advanced chip technology at present. Baidu's Kunlun 2 chip is based on the 7 nanometer process. Oppo meanwhile is reportedly working on a 3 nanometer chip. This is where the challenge lies for China. The country does not have a company capable of manufacturing these leading-edge semiconductors at these sizes. They will have to rely on just 3 companies, Intel from the US, TSMC from Taiwan and Samsung in South Korea. China's largest chip manufacturer SMIC is still years behind its companies in terms of manufacturing technology. But it's not just manufacturing. Even companies like TSMC and Intel rely on equipment and tools for the manufacturing process from other companies. In that area, power is concentrated in the hands of a few. ASML, a company from the Netherlands, is the only company in the world capable of making a machine that chip manufacturers need to make the most advanced chips. The semiconductor ecosystem is large and complex, so building self-sufficiency is very difficult across such a broad range of technologies and capabilities, Hanbury said. In general, the most challenging area to build self-sufficiency will be the leading edge. Here, the challenge is you need both investment dollars, but you also need to overcome the massive requirements around technical expertise and accumulated experience. The reliance on foreign companies leaves Chinese firms vulnerable to any geopolitical tensions, as was the case with both Huawei and SMIC. Huawei designed its own smartphone processors called Kirin. The chips were usually based on the latest technology and helped the Chinese smartphone giant become one of the biggest smartphone players in the world. However, the US put Huawei on a trade blacklist called the Entity List in 2019, which cut off the Chinese company from certain US technology. Last year, Washington introduced a rule which requires foreign manufacturers using American chip-making equipment to get a license before they are able to sell semiconductors to Huawei. Huawei's chips were manufactured by TSMC. But when the US rule was introduced, TSMC could no longer make semiconductors for Huawei. That crippled its smartphone business globally. SMIC is also on the US blacklist, which restricts its access to American technology. These sanctions could be a concern for Chinese companies now developing their own chips. For example, if there was an effort to block the shipment of smartphone processors, then Oppo, for example, would have a domestically designed source of chips, Hanbury said. However, most of these chips are still manufactured using international technology, so they could still lose access to their chips if the manufacturing partner for these chips were blocked from manufacturing. Governments around the world now see semiconductors as extremely strategic and important technology. US President Joe Biden has called for a $50 billion investment in semiconductor manufacturing and research, and has looked for chipmakers to invest in the country. In March, Intel announced plans to spend $20 billion to build 2 new chip factories, called fabs, in the US. This is about outcompeting China, Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo told CNBC in March. Washington has looked to bring semiconductor manufacturing back to the US, seeing it as key for national security, given the supply chain is very concentrated in Asia. But like-minded nations are also trying to work together to ensure their semiconductor supply chains are secure. Leaders of the United States, India, Japan and Australia, a group known as the Quad, announced plans in September to establish a semiconductor supply chain initiative aimed at identifying vulnerabilities and securing access to semiconductors and their vital components. A lot of the recent discussion on semiconductor supply chains was sparked by a global chip shortage that has hit industries from autos to consumer electronics, and worried leaders about their country's ability to secure semiconductors when required. China may be ahead of its peers in some areas of chip development, but it will find difficulty catching up with cutting-edge technology, at least in the short term. For example, SMIC can manufacture 28-nanometer chips on a large scale. These could be used in TVs or even autos, an area China could do well in, particularly with the current shortage of semiconductors. However, to put things in perspective, TSMC is already working on 3-nanometer technology. SMIC would have to master the manufacturing processes that TSMC has been doing for years before being able to catch up. So even moving quickly forward across these existing technologies would not be enough to catch up and reduce reliance at the leading edge, because the leading edge is constantly moving forward, Hanbury said. It's like running a race to catch a really fast runner while that runner is quickly running away from you. Thanks for having your watching in this video. You can add your ideas or suggestions below. Please keep following our channel and like our videos.